But if you want the new file system, if you want to be able to use interop with node-based tools, and you kind of want the latest and greatest, and there's no reason not to because we provide a free community edition, might as well go there. But if you want to stay on 2013, you can. If you want to migrate, here's how you do it. Number one, there's a tutorial online. Just search for Cordova Visual Studio 2015 migration or migrate. Like the key phrase you'd expect to type in for that kind of thing, right? If you want me to show you, I think I can do that here too, right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'll have to come back later on and show you some other cool stuff with Ionic that we didn't get to, but let's do the 2013 first. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close this solution. No need to save it, that's okay. And what I've got here, let me show you what actually happens. So I've got a 2013 project that's open on my desktop here, right? Let's see what happens when we actually try to open this guy, right? I do not have 2013 installed on this machine. Okay. So it's going to try to open up with 2015. It's going to think real hard about it. And, oh, sad trombone.
Incompatible.
Wah, wah, incompatible right there. Okay, so I know that sucks. Sorry, buddy. But we'll show you how to upgrade it. All right. So here's all you got to do. We're going to go ahead and file new project. This is where I was going to. One of the things I'm going to show you. Remember how we created an Ionic project back over in on the Mac side of things using the command line? Right. Well, let's say Mac isn't your thing. Let's say the command line isn't your thing. Right. You just still want to create an Ionic project. Bada bing, bada boom. Cool. Create it right here from inside of Visual Studio.
An extension?
That's an extension, yeah. That is something that we put together directly with the guys from Ionic. They collaborated with us to bring them in here. And so we've got a lot of great Ionic templates that you can choose from, and some great ones as well from the guys who make Onsen UI, which is a competitor to Ionic. Equally fabulous controls. So highly recommend them. Cool. But we're just going to create a blank project. So, create a blank project here. Give it a second to load up. All right. I'm going to close this down so you see here. And what I want to call your attention to is the fact that, let's see if I can, one is here, grab this guy here, that what is inside of this dub folder, there's almost a one-to-one mapping. Merges folder here to merges folder here. Right. Res folder here to res folder here. CSS and scripts to CSS and scripts, right? All you got to do is pair the folders one to one. There's not that many folders. It's really just this merges and res that go to the top, and everything else goes inside the dub folder. Does that make sense?
So if you just
drag and drop back over to here. Do I want to replace it? Yep. Apply to all items. Oops. Hit yes. Did I check it? Oh, it's thinking about the drag and drop. I clicked too many times. While it's thinking about merging the two. Drag and drop from one over to the other one. Just replace them. Because the fundamental difference between 2013 and 2015 was not the content of any of the files or the folders, but the way they were arranged. Oh, see, this is why we're still in RC. Because it was not the actual kind of content of any of the files, but it was just the way they were arranged. It's just the folder structure? It's just the folder structure.
So then that begs the question, is that something that Visual Studio 2015 should offer to do for me?
You know what? That is something that we thought long and hard about. In the end, it was a choice between bringing better features to, or bringing more features to our customers, and what was essentially a kind of a drag and drop operation and a relatively simple migration piece. We decided to focus on fixing meaningful bugs, delivering things like that dependencies node and better IntelliSense, so that developers who were using the product could do so with a little bit more confidence and with a little bit more parity between ASP.NET. Yeah, it's still going to ask me if I want to do it. Yeah, with a little bit more parity between their ASP.NET projects, because, you know, a lot of the people we talk to, a lot of the people that are using our tools today are understandably coming to us from ASP.NET 5, right?
Yep.
And so we wanted, or just ASP in general, right? And so we wanted to provide as familiar of an experience as possible and as much parity between those two. And for something that's a pretty simple copy and paste kind of thing, we figured that developers could get over that small hump without too much trouble. If we find that a lot of folks are really struggling with it, absolutely. Like, you know, we released kind of CTPs every 6 to 8 weeks for the last year. We move at a pretty fast clip. And so if we hear strong feedback from customers that they're having trouble somewhere, that they need a little bit of assist, we'll definitely jump in and make that easier.
Okay.
But I have faith that your listeners, our customers, can do copy and paste. Once RTM comes out and we fix this copy-paste error.
Okay.
So,
cool.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and close that guy because it's having a little bit of trouble there. So yeah, that's kind of what I got to share with you in terms of differences between RC and RTM today.
Cool.
Yeah.
So obviously the Cordova tooling is a critically important part of our cross-platform story. We've got the Xamarin tools for XAML and C# developers. We've got Cordova for HTML, JavaScript, CSS.
Yeah.
We've added lots of features in C++ in 2015 for building cross-platform apps.
Don't forget tools for Unity as well.
I would never forget tools for Unity.
Don't forget.
Never. For gaming developers and future HoloLens developers.
Yeah.
Because it supports it there.
Yeah.
So what's the sweet spot? What if I'm going to build an app, right? You know, people always say, "Oh, should I use Xamarin or Cordova?" To me, that's one of the easiest questions in the world. That's, you know, somebody asked me, "Should I use VB or C#?" What do you already know?
Yeah.
I already know VB.
Yeah.
Use VB, right? That's your first answer. Use what you know.
Yep.
So it's not a question of Xamarin versus Cordova, but if I do know HTML and JavaScript, I've got a number of options that a number of ways I can build apps. What are the sweet spots for Cordova? When should I build a Cordova app versus, you know, something else?
Yeah. So let me start answering that question by kind of rewinding the clock a little bit, going in the Wayback Machine to like 2011, 2012, right? When Cordova was first coming of age, right? And there was kind of a lot of excitement in the market about Cordova, and at the time what was usually called phone gap technologies. It's the exact same thing, really, fundamentally, right? And around that time, Zuckerberg pretty famously said, Facebook is throwing in the towel on HTML because you can't deliver the right user experience for that. To a certain extent, he was right. Like HTML at the time, particularly on mobile devices, was at a little bit of a liability. As the years have gone by, there are fewer and fewer performance liabilities, both because of software improvements and hardware improvements. And the software, I mean kind of on two fronts, both on the browser side of things. For example, iOS 8 delivers a much faster browser, both in terms of JavaScript performance and in terms of DOM performance. But also in terms of the way that we build apps. We've gotten much smarter about the way that we build apps, using things like React.js to minimize the number of DOM changes, or any of the kind of frameworks that you find in the kind of the Angular Ionic kind of pairing, who've gotten kind of just better or smarter about the way that we handle dealing with the DOM. But there's another piece of this as well, which is that at the time, cross-platform applications, there were really only two kind of platforms that you were targeting. And to target those two platforms, maybe two ecosystems wasn't enough to really make it kind of meaningful from a consumer perspective. Kind of, you're trying to deliver a product where you make all of your money 99 cents at a time, right, through these downloads. But if you kind of fast forward a little bit to today, where we're at today, there's really kind of a coming of age for enterprises and businesses that are starting to deliver applications, and they're not making their money by delivering best-in-class experiences where they're trying to, kind of meet the bottom line 99 cents at a time. Instead, businesses are trying to meet a kind of environment where it's a kind of an employee bring your own device. They need to minimize costs in development, and they need to deliver functional, good-looking, kind of easy, accessible apps that probably you want to also not just minimize the cost of initial development, but you also want to minimize the cost of maintenance. And you want to minimize the cost for training people on how to use these apps. Let's say, for example, that you are a kind of like an inspection kind of utility, right? We have one customer who builds apps that utility kind of meter readers will use out in the field. And they don't want to have to train all of those kind of contractors, who each of them using a different device on a different UI. They want the same UI so that the instruction manuals and the training that they give those contractors and those vendors, that training can be uniform. And then when they need to make an update to the application, they only have to make it to one code base and not multiple ones. Right? And so what we're finding is that for businesses that need to minimize costs, that need to deliver maintenance frequently and expensively, and want to deliver an experience that is easily communicated and easily trained and easily kind of controlled across all of the devices, JavaScript Cordova apps become really, really important. And I want to add one other piece to this as well, because JavaScript as a language has a little bit of an unfair advantage over native applications. Now, don't get me wrong, there's lots of great things about native applications.
What, it's easier to learn than
this isn't
C or Java?
Well, okay, I think so, but not for everyone. No, I actually mean in terms of the endpoints, the delivery vehicle for it. So if you want to deploy a native application to the iTunes Store, the Apple Store, the Google Play Store, even the Windows Store, right? You've got to go through the store submission process every time. You've got to compile that sucker, you've got to kind of submit it out and sign it and provision it and get your certificates all in order, and then fill out a form that says why you're making an update and go through all of that rigmarole, right? And to a certain degree, I think that the stores have enforced these policies so that they can curate, I don't know, to a certain extent, their stores and their app ecosystems. But if you are a business that is just trying to get a bug fixed, or is trying to deliver a new feature quickly that's needed out in the field, going through that store submission process is another unnecessary gateway that you don't want to deal with. Right? And so JavaScript is the only delivery mechanism where by store policy, you are allowed to deliver updates dynamically without going through the store submission process. And so you can essentially package up your HTML, your CSS, your JavaScript assets. Your app can phone home, say, hey, do you have an update for me? Suck down those assets, rehydrate your application with the new assets, and you just made an update to a mobile application in the same way that you would update a website, but it's a mobile application and it has offline capabilities. It has access to native device capabilities. It has that slick, good-looking UI that we were taking a look at earlier that looks, feels, smells, tastes just like a native application, but you didn't have to go through these unnecessary gateways that are the store, kind of the guardians of the store ecosystems, right?
All right,
so
cool.
I think that's a compelling reason to use Cordova applications.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Hey,
awesome stuff.
Dude, it's been super fun chatting with you.
Thanks for coming back on.
Dude, I had a great time. I hope that you'll have me back in a couple months.
Absolutely. We'll definitely have you back on. We might want to consider doing more of a multi-part where we actually build an app.
Dude, that'd be sweet.
All right.
That'd be sweet.
I got one in mind.
Okay. All right, cool.
All right. See you next time on Visual Studio Toolbox.
Thanks, guys.